is you are not broken. You're going to spend years thinking something is wrong with you.
However, even most capable people still have these execution blocks.
The brain will lie to you, flat out. Its whole job is to protect you.
What is that typically? What have you found is that deeper thing? I thought I understood procrastination until Jennie Hays showed me how often the real issue is something deeper. As an execution block specialist, she reveals why capable people can know exactly what to do and still feel unable to move. This conversation changed how I see being stuck, and I think it will change something for you too. You know, as I was thinking about our conversation, and a big part of what your work is you help professionals get through what you call execution blocks, things that people need to do. They know they need to do them, but there's something underlining that's keeping them from doing them. However, before we get into those patterns that I'm really interested in understanding, because I know there's some patterns that I have along those lines, what is an execution block?
I think you already described it quite well. It's that thing that is keeping you from doing what you need to do. We run into this in all different areas. We just see it a lot more in business. And probably your audience, if they're sitting here listening to you and they have a business, they know those moments. For me, it was in marketing, and we'll dive into that more later, I'm sure. But it's that I need to do X, Y, or Z. I know what to do. I probably have taken way too many courses and had way too much coaching on how to do it. But when it comes down to doing it, I can't do it. A lot of times we identify these things as like imposter syndrome, procrastination, perfectionism. We have lots of different names for it, but it really boils down to there is something in your past, usually long past, not recent past, but it can be recent, that works like a landmine. And it trips you up.
In your experience with the professionals that you coach and you work with, what is it typically that they know they need to do that they're just not doing? What are you hearing there?
Creating their website, networking, doing the emails or the social media posts, recording that video. It's very rarely the things that our clients are directly asking us to do. It's usually something that is going to take us to the next level. You know, it's that, for me, it was the list of 20 names that you're supposed to reach out to. I had convinced myself that I wasn't going to reach out to people I knew. I wasn't going to tell people I knew what I was doing now, even though pretty much every single coaching program in the world says to list X number of people you know and tell them what you're doing. I had decided that that just wasn't who I was. That was the wrong strategy for me. In all reality, what it was is that I was afraid they were going to see me and go, oh, she's trying something else and she's probably going to fail at this again.
You know,
And so it's a lot of that kind of stuff.
it got me thinking a little bit, your example there, because I was thinking about certain times where I know, for instance, if I have to send an email, and it's a really easy thing to do. It's just literally just open up the inbox and type and send out the email. But I often wonder, is that procrastination, that, or hesitation, however you put it, that execution block, how much of it is either not knowing what to do or knowing what to do and still not doing it?
And that's part of what I do is I help to sort those things out, because sometimes it's just that you don't want to do it. It's like, man, that's just one more thing. I really don't like this. It's not fun. But when you put yourself in the position, you're like, okay, I just got to do it. You sit down and you do it. Sometimes it's that you don't know what to do. I have this email. I'm supposed to send it. I'm not sure how to say what I need to say. And then we need a tool. We need a template. We need AI. We need something to help us bridge that gap. But once we have that, it's really easy. You sit down and go, oh, okay, I know that I'm going to go into my email communications dashboard and I'm going to say, so-and-so sent me this email. I'm not sure how I would respond. Give me some words. And then I'm going to be able to do it. The execution blocks, really the deep ones, come in when you're thinking about that email and you're like, I know it's not going to be that hard. I know what to say. It just doesn't feel good. I don't want to do it right now. And it continues and it continues. And when it comes down, push comes to shove, you really have a hard time actually doing it. Not just because it doesn't feel good, but there's something deeper keeping you from doing it.
What is that typically? What have you found is that deeper thing?
It it tends to run into either something that somebody told you when you were young, a belief that you developed, a trauma. We never really know what it's going to, well, I can't say never. We rarely know what it's going to be rooted in when we go in and do a reset session. That's what I do to help re- rebuild, remove that landmine.
Hmm.
And it's always a journey because sometimes we'll go in and it's like, I just can't network. I can't get on there and tell people what I do. And we'll sit down, we'll do the session. And all of a sudden, we're talking about how your dad never came home after he was supposed to come home and he didn't come home. And now you feel abandoned. And somehow that is tied to these networking sessions. You're afraid that you're going to be abandoned if you form a relationship or something. And it's like, I never thought of it that way. And it's just wild, the things that'll come in. Um, I know for me that I always wanted to sing and perform. You can see actually, it's my dad's 12 string back there. Um, but I held this block forever because when I was growing up, I was singing in the car one day, and my dad turned around and said, "We don't need a concert." And for the longest time, I couldn't share my voice because I was afraid I was being too loud. I would have never connected the two without assistance. But once I realized what it was like, oh, that's not even what he meant. We were driving, he was trying to pay attention. And so I was able to let go of it and ended up leading worship for 5 years and had a small country band for a while. So when we can let go of those things that are keeping us stuck and we are able to process that memory, we can move forward.
That's very interesting. It shocks me. It doesn't surprise me, but it shocks me that something so trivial like recording something or completing your email or website could be tied to something significant that is so personal and so historical, but yet it's still driving your conscious behaviors to a degree where you're not even aware of.
Yeah. I always say that building a business is the best personal improvement program you will ever enroll in. But sometimes it's not even that big of a thing. It's the conversation that the fight that your parents had when you were 2 or 3 years old about money that now has you believing that money is hard to earn. And so you never ask for what you need in your business.
Hmm.
You know, it's all it's those little pieces. Sometimes it's big. I've done work with people that have been through war or abuses, things like that, and they know that that's a big thing in their life, but they don't understand how it's rooted into their business.
So would it be fair to say then, like in a situation, like if I have to send off an email to somebody who I is important, they're influential, and I'm trying to put my best foot forward. And if I'm having a hard time completing that email, and it's because I'm thinking about this person in a way where it's like I want them to respect me, I want them to see
Mhm.
value, I want them to be influenced the way I need them to be. It's not exactly that I'm thinking about that outcome in the moment that is the hesitation, but I'm wondering, is it because I've felt experiences in the past where I haven't been influential in situations where I needed to be with people who were important and I needed their support from? Maybe those are some of the things that I could tie together. Would that be one of them?
It might be. That is usually the more direct lines where we can see, like, oh, yeah, that makes sense, this to this. Sometimes it's something completely off the bat. Like I said, you were in school and your teacher called on you and you got the answer wrong. You didn't realize it made such an impact. You don't even remember the incident, but now it's keeping you from sending that email because your brain is going, oh, this is just like that teacher. And she's going to say that I got it wrong. And in this case, it means a lot. It's your business, it's your income, it's your family, it's your future, it's your legacy. And so your brain is trying to protect you.
That's incredible, and I do agree with you. I feel like the brain is this neutral matter in our heads that we give so much power to, and and deservedly so. We need our brains. Our brain is one of the most important functions of our whole anatomy. However, it doesn't know good or bad. It just knows experiences, and then it equates those experiences with actions or behaviors that are suggested moving forward. And it's interesting, right? Because you don't really think about how those small instances when you're younger, your brain was like, "Up, I didn't like that. Let's avoid that in the future." And then that becomes your more conscious state in the way you behave and you act in life. So, with that being said, what are some signs that somebody could look out for where their execution is collapsing throughout the day? And they may not be able to get deep, but
Mhm.
what are some signs that they can notice? Okay, wait a second, something is not right.
Well, I mean, you just described a very classic sign. There's something you need to do. You need to send that email. You know how to do it. You have tools that can help you do it. You just don't want to do it. There's something in your gut. A lot of times you feel it in your body. I always think of the brain as the brain will lie to you flat out because its whole job is to protect you. And so if it sees that email and it equates it to that teacher, it's going to say, you know what? We can't send that. You don't feel good. You don't want to. You're not going to. We have other things to do. It's going to come up with a reason. The words aren't right, etc. The body, however, tattles on the brain and tells you the truth. And so many times when your brain's doing that and you kind of describe that, you could feel something in your body. You really need to do that email, but you don't want to because it feels yucky. That's because what your brain is doing is it's lying to you. Your brain's trying to protect you, keep you from doing it. The body is the truth teller. It's the lie detector. And so when you're going in to do something and your body is just not letting you, that is a huge sign that you have a very deep execution block. The nice thing is that we can get rid of them very quickly, but nobody teaches it. Nobody does it. You spend years in therapy or you go to, you know, business boot camp or you hire another coach, you find another strategy when strategy wasn't the issue. You know how to send an email. You don't need another strategy. I'm sure you know how to use AI. You don't need another strategy. What you need is to figure out why your body is responding that way and why your brain is telling you you can't do it.
How much work does somebody have to do? Because when I think about us talking about this email situation, it's not like I'm, oh my goodness, now I have to have this deep introspective, diagnosis of why I'm not sending this, and I'm, going back in my history in my brain and being like, oh, when I was 5 years old, I gave a letter to one of my classmates and they ripped it up in front of me. It's like I can't send things to people. So, I'm not sure how many people, you know, would want to go through that journey. So I'm just wondering, and I'm being facetious when I say this, but when I say that,
Of
but
course.
what can somebody do that, is more generally reasonable in that moment where they could take a quick kind of diagnosis, not having to go down a deep rabbit hole?
One thing I love about the reset sessions that I do is that they are rooted in what's called brain spotting. And brain spotting, first of all, you don't even have to know what the memory was that's got you stuck. All you need to know is what you feel today when you go to send that email. It takes us an hour to 3 hours max to clear it, and it doesn't come back. It's gone. So there's no deep rooting. I mean, do people cry during brain spotting? Yeah, sometimes, because it can get really deep, but it doesn't have to. And like I said, it's lasting. You come in and you do the session, you go home, or you don't even have to go home because it's on Zoom. You go to your computer, you pull up the email, you read it, you change anything needs to get changed, and you send it, and it's done. And it's not every email, it's that whole issue around the email. And it's insane. If you try to do the same thing with mindset work or that deep reflective stuff that you're talking about, it can take years to address that same thing. And then you do have to do that deep introspective work. Before I stumbled on this technique, I was into limiting beliefs reversal. I would work on it every single day. It was like, you know, identify the false belief, identify the true belief, provide proof. Now, I promised you before we started that we're going to talk about how the brain works a little bit, right? And so we talked a little bit about how the brain will lie to you. Well, I believe figuratively that it's almost like we have this wall in our brain. We were talking about cognitive dissonance. And inside of there, we have these little sentry guards. And their job is to keep things from getting mixed up too much, to keep us from feeling that we don't know who we are, we don't understand what's going on in the world, to make sure that things line up. And so Dwayne brings in this new thought of, I'm fine. I can send this email. I don't have to worry about being judged because I'm really good at what I do. And this person's going to appreciate that. And so this comes up to the sentries in the brain, and they listen and they go, hold on a second. And they look through all the old proof in your brain. And they go, nope, Dwayne, you're an idiot. And so that's what comes down, and you carry it down with you. You're like, oh, no, that was wrong. And you can retrain them little by little by then answering back, no, I'm not an idiot. Look, I've got this, and this proof that I know what I'm doing and that I can be appreciated. That takes a very, very long time. With brain spotting, what we do is we sneak in the back door and we go and we put a whole new set of files in and take that old file out. And so now when that message comes up to the sentries, they go, hold on. And they look and they go, oh, yeah, you know what? You can send that email. You're good. And it's just about that instantaneous.
How do you take somebody through brain spotting?
So, like I said, I've done it almost exclusively online. You need a quiet place. You need some tissues just in case you do cry. And you need the willingness to play. Okay. You have to be willing to do things that you've never done before because this is unusual. You come in, we talk about what the issue is. So with the emails, how do you feel when you go to send that email? Where do you feel it in your body? If you don't feel it in your body, it's okay. We can still find it. And then we find what's called your brain spot. And that is where your eyes look and it increases the sensation.
What does
The
that mean?
theory is, and yeah, so the theory is that your eyes are connected because we have the nerve, the cranial nerves directly to the brain, and it can actually locate where in the 3D world that memory is stored that's causing the dissonance. You can think of it like this. So I want you to think of something that frustrated you recently. Traffic, spouse, something minor, but yet enough that it's like, yeah, I can feel that in my body. And tell me when you've got something.
Got it.
Okay. So now I want you to keep thinking about that. And I want you to take your eyes and I want you to go all the way to your right, just your eyes, and think about that sensation. Come back to the middle and then all the way to your left. And think about that sensation. Was one side stronger than the other?
Yeah, the right side.
I would, yeah,
Why is that?
because the theory is that you're actually accessing that with the nerve group behind the eyes, the cranial nerves. And so what we do is we find those spots where it's more intense, and then sometimes we find a spot where it's less intense intentionally. And then we let the body do what it does so well. We are created so amazingly well that if we will allow ourselves to process that memory, we can take that memory from that landmine position where it's tripping us up to long-term storage where it's as important as what color shirt you wore last Thursday. If you've seen Inside Out 2, people kept telling me I had to watch it. I finally watched it, and it's truly, you're taking your marble, and instead of it being right there in the middle where everybody can see it, we're throwing it all the way out in the back of the field. It just doesn't matter. You don't forget it. It just doesn't trip you up anymore. It's amazing.
Yeah. And for those who may not know the Inside 2 reference and the marbles is the character,
Oh, sorry.
their emotions are these live individuals that essentially communicate and they pull her in different directions and obviously it impacts her moods as she displays them in real life, but then she has a set of marbles which are all her past memories and one of the emotions tries to cut her off from those memories because some of them are painful and she wants the individual, she wants this person to be in a constant, euphoric state. So get rid of some of those bad memories. So the moral of the story is that some of those bad memories are important memories to have because they make up who you are today and how you show up in the world. So it's cool that you use that reference because as soon as you said that, I clicked with it right off the bat because I understand those marbles. There's marbles I want to pull back and say, okay, I need you right now. But then there's other marbles where I'm like, you are an experience and it taught me something, but it's not the experience I want to lead me today. So is that the sort of internal, I guess, clarity that somebody needs to have?
It's a deeper than even that knowledge level. It's actually um, in who you are. So you can hold on to those painful memories and them not be painful anymore. Because what you don't need is the pain. So the characters were right in the story in the fact that they don't want her to be unhappy. But the piece that they missed where we come in is that you do need those memory pieces, but you don't have to hold on to the discomfort and the pain anymore
Hmm.
to learn from it.
Hmm.
You know not to touch a hot stove. It doesn't mean you have to touch a hot stove on a regular basis in order to learn not to touch a hot stove.
Hmm. Yeah,
Does that make sense? You're kind of
it does.
staring and thinking.
No, it does because I'm thinking again about the movie, and I'm glad you mentioned Inside Out too, and hopefully that drives some people to watch it if they haven't seen it yet. But
It's
as
really cute.
it's a really cute movie, yeah. It's a really well done movie. But you think about it conceptually, and you're like, yes, okay, I get it. This does apply, to me right now in real
Mhm.
life. And it's interesting because with the character, the emotion wanted her to be happy all the time and never wanted her to be sad and thought that removing these memories was important. However, as these memories were removed in the real world, this person started to become more indifferent. They lacked the ability to empathize, with their friends and family, and they became cold and whatnot. So it's almost like these feelings are necessary for us to be more well-rounded, to be able to really navigate life in a way where you are more empathetic, you have higher self-awareness. Like you said, I've touched the stove in the past. I know it's hot. I'm not going to do it again. So these things actually lead you to being better when you embrace these memories, right?
Most definitely. And it's really hard to embrace a memory when it is clouded with pain or, any of these other negative emotions. And so if we can actually lift that emotion from the memory is also more useful.
Hmm.
And I've gotten into some really deep, dark memories with people. And once the emotion is removed, I always find it funny that the thing that brings them in, sometimes they'll be in tears. And then when I bring it back up again at the end, they'll be laughing about it. And it's not that they're laughing about the experience, they're laughing about the fact that there's such a lightness to who they are around that memory now,
Hmm.
that it, again, they're able to access it without the pain, which means that it also lifts that block that was keeping them from doing what they needed to do because they were reliving the pain,
Hmm.
sometimes in an unassociated situation.
So it's very interesting because I think about me being a capable person. I consider myself very capable. I consider myself successful in a lot of things that I've done. I understand that, I've had to fail and I've failed and I'll continue to fail. And these are the lessons that I've chosen to learn from versus allowing them to hold me back. However, even most capable people still have these execution blocks, yet they have
Mhm.
probably a good catalog of circumstances that have proven they could succeed or they are capable. Why does it still impact even capable people?
So there are people that can push through. So not every single execution block needs a reset session. A good example, I teach people all day long how to do their websites. I know how to do a website. I can do a website with my eyes closed. I didn't do my own website for 18 months. I kept going, oh, I'll get to it. I'll put it off. Da 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 da. And then I was actually doing a reset session with someone about their website, and it dawned on me. I was like, oh, crud. I've got a block around mine. I don't want to be seen. Okay. And that was enough. Recognizing it was enough to go, okay, let's do it. And it took me a day and a half while I was still working full time. It didn't take any time at all to do it, but I had to recognize the fact that I was stopping myself. This is the way a lot of people push through some of these smaller blocks. Type A personalities, um, usually the more masculine raised people, the people that you see Wall Street, when you're thinking that type A, they have been taught, even though it is uncomfortable, we just do it and get it done. That works for a lot of people. It does not work for everybody. You could have told me just do it and get it done with that list of people that I had to reach out to. In fact, I don't know how many times I was told that, and I wasn't going to do it. My body would not allow me to. And so my brain came up with really good excuses. But once I had a reset session, it's nothing. I wouldn't have been on a podcast before. I wouldn't have gone and actually networked with people to have known the wonderful woman that introduced us. I wouldn't have done those things because I was so worried about people seeing who I was. And now it's like that's just history. That's good proof that what I do works and I can share it. And I couldn't have done that before. So there's a range of blocks. Sometimes it is strategy, sometimes it is knowing what to do, but sometimes it's not. And sometimes you just can't push past it no matter how many people tell you to.
What do you say in circumstances where it's like people know what they need to do? The execution block may not be necessarily the thing they want to do, but it could be the overwhelmingness of planning, being accountable, being motivated. What if it's that part?
So we talk about it and we pull it apart and we look at each part. Do you just need accountability? Do you just need to think that every 2 weeks you're going to have to report to me and I'm just going to beat you up if you don't do it? I'm not going to, but if that works for you, that's okay. Sometimes you just need accountability. Sometimes you just need something that's aligned with who you are. You can tell me all day to go and do Facebook, and I'm not going to do it, not because I can't now, but because I really don't like Facebook. I really don't. I find it very toxic. So I can do what I need to if I need to, and I can walk away from it. I now work mostly on LinkedIn and YouTube because that's what aligns with who I am. But I'm still doing the thing that I wasn't doing when I was blocked, which was marketing.
Hmm.
I'm just aligning it to who I am.
I want to talk a little bit more about who you are and how you got here. What is your relationship with execution blocks?
Oh, been there, done that, lived it, have the t-shirt, have it, I have grown so much. That's one of the reasons that when I saw the name of your podcast, I was like, oh, I've got to go find out more about this guy because what's changed is night and day for me. I started coaching back in, gosh, 2019. I was doing insulin resistance coaching. And the first thing I did was buy a $10,000 program that was going to teach me everything, right? And so I went through the program, and right about the time we had to start marketing, guess what I did? I disappeared. It's wrong program, wrong technique, wrong everything. That's fine. So I'm still working on my business. And I spend another 3,000 here, 2,000 here. My husband comes to me 3 years later and says, you've made $267 in 3 years, not counting all of the programs, all of the programs on the computer that I was using, in addition to the coaching and all of the stuff. You've got to get a job. And so I cried, kicked, and screamed and hollered. And I ended up falling in with this wonderful company called Jennie that helps therapists to grow and scale their practices. And I kept seeing the same things in them. They were coming to coaching because they couldn't do the thing. Most of them was marketing. Most of them, it's the networking, the putting themselves out in front of people. And then we brought someone on the team that does brain spotting. And we all learned how to do brain spotting. And I was watching people go from unable to just blowing it out of the water. One of my favorite stories is one of my very first brain spotting clients. She just wanted to tell her doctor that she had opened her practice, and she couldn't do it. And we had been working on it for like 2.5, 3 months, different techniques, different strategies, different thought processes, working through the mindset stuff. I was like, let's just play. Let's try this new thing and see if it works. We did one reset session. She came back 2 weeks later. She had not only told that doctor, she told two others. And she had a list of 27 people from a previous career that she was going through and reaching out to because they might know her ideal client. It was like, blew me away. And so then for the next 2 years, I'm helping all of these therapists and doing these reset sessions with them and watching them just explode. I had one person who hit $200,000 in her second year. Her first year, she was supposed to make 70, and by the end of the first year, she was at 100,000. Second year, she doubled it because of these reset sessions. I'm sitting at my desk in tears one day because my business is still barely lukewarm because I still can't do the thing. And so I was like, and I didn't actually realize what the problem was. I just knew I wasn't getting anywhere and I couldn't do what I needed to do. And so I was like, well, maybe I should try a session myself. Light bulb took 2 years. I did one session with a friend. We swapped and I started networking. I changed my niche. I started working with business people doing these reset sessions because I love them. And it's so fast. You get results so fast. Um, and I think that's the paramedic in me, which we haven't even touched on. And it was just night and day. I did nothing but marketing for the first 4 months. And month 4, when I finally opened my doors, I was profitable, which is something I had never seen before.
Hmm.
Now, do I still run into issues that And I have blocks? Yes, but I can identify them now. It's like, oh, that's a block. Do I need to push through it? Do I need to change what I'm doing? Do I need a session?
Hmm.
And if I need a session, I just go get one. And then it's like, okay, it's like a light switch got turned off.
It's such a fascinating story. And, I give you a lot of credit to really changing everything around as significantly as you did and introducing yourself to something that I don't think many people are aware of when you think about,
Yeah.
resetting your mind in that capacity. I was wondering as you were talking, I was thinking about this and I was saying, sometimes I just don't feel like doing the thing just because I just don't feel like it. So, are there unique patterns that differentiate execution blocks versus just not in the mood?
Well, not in the mood is fine as long as the not in the mood goes away.
Hmm.
But we tend to see things that people will call these blocks things like I said, imposter syndrome, procrastination. If you're procrastinating for 18 months, it's probably a block.
Yeah.
If you're procrastinating for a week, okay. You just didn't want to do it. That makes sense. Imposter syndrome, functional freeze, analysis paralysis when you're stuck in that research mode and you can't get out of it. Overwhelm. Overwhelm can be an execution block if you are continually in overwhelm. So, one thing our brain will do is say, you know what, I'm too overwhelmed to deal with it because I have all this stuff going on. But then as things start to quiet down, it'll actually go out and create more chaos to keep us in overwhelm so that we don't have to deal with it. Like I said, procrastination, that functional freeze, we tend to see that when it goes on too long. I do believe that our bodies run in cycles, especially as a woman. My body runs in a cycle. We know this. I have up days and down days. On top of being female, I have ADHD. So I'm going to have up weeks and down weeks. So when I'm up, I do the thing. And when I'm down, I forgive myself. If you can do that and you do the thing on that up week, that's not a block. That's just who you are. Embrace it.
Mm.
Perfectionism. If you have perfectionism to the point that you can't release the thing, you can't actually put it in front of people, that's a block. If you have perfectionism and you keep working on it, you exhaust yourself, but you finally go, all right, let's put it out there. That's not a block. That's perfectionism. And so there's varying degrees of each one of these. Imposter syndrome is one of my favorites. I think that's why that always comes to mind first, because you're going to hit imposter syndrome when you grow. It's always a sign of growth. Imposter syndrome will clear what's causing the imposter syndrome this time, and then you'll continue your growth point, and then you'll get to a new barrier, and something else will come up, and it'll show up as imposter syndrome. And it's like, oh, it's time to go get another session. Let's knock that out, and then I'm ready to grow more. Functional freeze, where you just sit on the couch and play games or watch TV because your brain and your body won't let you do the thing. Again, you do it for a short time. Maybe you needed the rest. Maybe your brain needed the space to think through some of those things that you can't think through when you're actively doing things. If it starts going on for a couple, 3 weeks, we need to start looking, is this actually a block? So let's explore it.
Where do you find most people struggle with those blocks? Which ones stand out the most to you?
Imposter syndrome is one of the easiest ones to recognize. And so
Hmm.
people come in with that one all the time. I think the functional freeze and the perfectionism are the ones that are that low, constant running ones that people aren't always even sure they have an issue until someone points it out. And so I would say the majority of people I've worked with fall into those two categories.
You know, I was really interested in all of those that you laid out because in my mind, I was kind of approaching each one and saying, okay, what would that look like in my life? When you said functional freeze, I know there are moments where I may have to work on my podcast, for instance, but there's a new show on Netflix and I am just enthralled. So I'm like, I'll watch it. My mind is tired. My brain is tired. I'm just going to watch this. And I get my work done eventually, but there's moments where I know consciously I'm choosing to just veg out versus actually do the things that I have to do. So I'm wondering, thinking of this now, how much of our execution blocks are externally driven versus internally, especially in a day
I
today with social media and all that?
That's not really an execution block then. So what you said that was important there is I just want to do this, but I get my work done eventually. The deadline still drives you and you still get it done. What I'm talking about with functional freeze is the deadline is there and you push the deadline
Mm.
and you push the deadline. And so it's the inability to actually follow through. I see this a lot on pricing. You're charging X dollars, let's say $200 for something. You know the price needs to go to 250, but you don't want to do it because you don't want to tell people, you don't want to hurt people's feelings, you don't want to lose sales, you come up with all of these reasons why you can't do it. And so you've been charging the same rate for 5 years rather than just doing it.
So you're saying execution blocks aren't necessarily external.
They are not external. You use external tools as excuses.
Mm.
There's something inside that says, I'm not worth charging that much.
Hmm.
And so you're like, oh, well, I'm not going to raise my rates right now because if I do, all of these things will happen. If you truly had an execution block, number one, we wouldn't be sitting here because your podcast would still be in formation probably. But if you had an execution block around doing the podcast, you would be sitting there on the couch watching the show. And then when you ran out of the show, it would be like, oh, well, I need to watch another show. I need to watch another show. Oh, well, now it's too late to do that. So now I might as well just watch another show. And so you never get to the doing. And then it's in the name, it's the execution of the thing. You are executing that email. If you send it, even though it feels yucky, you have executed that task. But if you can't do it and it sits there and it sits there because you're like, I need to say the right thing, I can't, and then it's too old to send, and what will they think? And so it never really gets sent. Now we're looking at, is this an execution block?
Hmm. So when you're saying somebody is blaming all these external factors, uh, and being interrupted, there's distractions, there's other responsibilities and expectations that I have. Those really are just kind of like a topical excuse for something internally that's truly driving the execution block. But I could imagine in these situations, it's easier to blame those external things than it is to take responsibility for those, for your own execution blocks internally.
Yeah.
How do you get people across that bridge to take accountability?
Usually they're usually they're tired. They've tried everything. They can't figure out how to do it. They've they're just tired of either throwing money or time at it. They're ready to give up. They're like, well, I just can't do it. I've got mom in the nursing home. I've got dad in the hospital. I've got the kids in school. I've got this going on and this going on and this going on and this going on. I'm trying to run a business. I just don't know how to do it. I can't do it. I've got all this stuff. This is supposed to make it easy. I'm tired. That's when they come in. Or like myself, I've spent thousands and thousands of dollars, but I keep getting stuck at the same place. And so there's a recognition point when it's you're doing and then stuck. And then you're doing and stuck. and you're stuck at the same spot each time. For me, it was the marketing piece. I had all the back end stuff. I had stuff built. Oh my gosh, you should see all the different programs and stuff that I had in the background, waiting for people to find me, but not telling them where I was and who I was, right? If you've got a video you need to do and you keep finding everything else in the world to do except for that video, we need to stop and talk about whether or not you have an execution block. Is it the video that you're avoiding? People do get genuinely busy, but it should be a phase in life,
Hmm.
not an existence.
I like that. I like how you stated that. I was thinking about execution blocks in a sense that do you find people may have more of a strategy problem versus an execution block problem, or do they are they mutually inclusive or exclusive? I don't know.
So the strategy problem is usually not what keeps you from doing it. It'll keep you busy, but it won't actually keep you from doing it. What I do in my program is that we start off with clearing the blocks and we address the strategy to make sure it fits who you are. Because we will put ourselves into situations where it's like, okay, I've got to go on Facebook. I hate Facebook. Why am I going on Facebook? Oh, that's right. I have to do it. And we'll make it hard on ourselves. So there can be some strategy alignment, but I would say most of the people that I meet whose businesses are not where they want them to be have got a block because they've done everything else up to this point and they're stuck.
These execution blocks, they feel very holistic, because you've been using language with professionals or business owners, but yet a lot of the decisions they're making from a business perspective are rooted in their personal history. So this is really something for anybody that is experiencing any sort of block in any area of their life, whether it's their diet plan, exercising, parenting, reading new hobbies. All of those things can be attributed to, or the delay of those things can be attributed to some form of an execution block that they haven't identified.
100%. 100%. The reason that I work mainly in business is because the good old marketing adage of you got to niche down. And I was like, who do I love working with? I love working with people like myself, as most of us do. And I was like, this is going to be my niche. I've also worked with people who are recovering from assaults, from work trauma, from people with diet issues. I had a really cool a gentleman that I was working with that worked in a place where his break room was right in front of his office, right in front of his desk, and he could see it. And they always had free goodies in there, free snacks. And he was attempting a low carb diet. And so the candy bars and all of that were not good. And he found himself always going in there. And so we did a session. And afterwards, he was like, I don't even see the door anymore. I just don't see it.
And he didn't have to move.
He didn't have to move.
Wow.
He just doesn't see it from his desk. It just wasn't there. And he just quit going in there and eating all the junk.
I'm interested, obviously, without getting into the nitty gritty, but how did you get him to that point? Because when you were talking there, my thought was, okay, Jenny's going to say it was a structural issue. He moved his desk so he wasn't facing that office. But you said he just stopped seeing it after a session. How?
We don't understand the science behind it. We really don't. But what we did is we did exactly what I explained. We addressed the emotion, the feeling in his body when he would see the door, that kind of that lack, that need, that want, the boredom. And then we found his brain spot. And then we let the body process that. And I don't even remember what his memory, I don't think he spoke a whole lot. You don't have to talk through the whole thing. I love it when you do because I get to go on the journey with you, but you can be completely silent and still do this. And at the end, he was like, okay, I think I'm just really bored. I was like, okay. And sure enough, he went to work and came back the next week and he was like, yeah, the door's just like not even there anymore. I just don't see it. And we continued working together for another couple months and he didn't go back in there.
Wow.
There was no more going in to grab snacks. Um, it's insane the way the
Wow.
brain and the body work together.
Yeah, it is. And it's something I've been, as I was saying earlier, before we were recording, I've just become more fascinated with it. Just that whole mind, body, brain connection and
Yep.
having more awareness of when I'm in behaviors that are subconscious and rooted into past experiences that I haven't reconciled with and understanding that. I've been very cautious about you know, not allowing emotions to dictate my actions. So understanding what emotion I'm feeling and such a small practice is naming your emotion when you're feeling it. And that's changed a
Yes.
lot. It's changed with my daughter, and she's annoying me. And I realize she's 11 years old, and I just have to ask myself in this moment, why am I annoyed right now? It's just like really allowing yourself to understand the emotion and own it. But I find when you do that, you cycle through it a lot quicker, and I
Right.
and
And there's an I was gonna say there's a next level thing you can do with that. I just was reading a study the other day. If you will say, you know what, Dwayne is irritated right now and frustrated. It's okay. Why am I feeling this way? Naming yourself by your name and saying what your emotion is takes it to the next level.
mm, hmm.
And then here's something for you to try when that doesn't work. Because sometimes it doesn't work, because we're human, right? So when you can remove yourself from the situation, if you will picture the situation, and this is going to involve hands, and so you want to be somewhere that people aren't necessarily going to be seeing you if you're worried about that. Um, think of the situation where your daughter irritated you and you're like, or frustrated you, and you actually look at it. And if it's a video that you're seeing in your mind, you're actually seeing action, make it a still photo. And if it's a still photo, make it a video. Determine which one feels better and keep it whichever one feels better.
Mm.
Next, we're going to go color or black and white. Which one feels better, the color or the black and white? Keep it as that one. And then we're going to change the size. And we're going to start off, we're going to grab the edges. It's hard to see me on this screen, so I'll go really small here. You grab the edges of it and you make it really big and see how that feels. And then you make it really, really, really small and see how that feels. And you leave it whichever one it is. And then this is where we get into the figuring out where to put it. Sometimes you can take it and crumple it up and put it behind you. There's actual science about the phrase putting things behind you.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you can leave it there and it's like, oh, there's a lightness now. Sometimes your body will go, oh, no, we're not doing that. It's all right. Grab it, bring it back. And then you imagine the biggest warehouse you can imagine, Amazon on steroids. And the shelves go back as far as you can see. And you take that memory, that picture or that video, and you put it on the furthest shelf out that will allow you to put it on. And you leave it there. And you will feel a difference in the way your body feels. Now, this doesn't remove it. It doesn't take the marble and put it in the extra memory space. But what it does is it does remove it from your immediate emotional impact. But it's still close enough that your brain can go, oh, but I can still see it. So I can still learn from it and deal with it right now.
That's remarkable. I actually followed your exercise with the exact moment that my daughter irritated me, and I felt that shift right off the bat. And it's so funny because, she doesn't irritate me in a negative way. It's more of like maybe she's being a little too silly and I need her to not be, you know? And
To love it.
it's
Yeah.
interesting, yeah, but it's interesting because there's a moment she's being silly, she's laughing and she's smiling. And even though I'm irritated in the moment because I'm trying to get her to do something seriously, when I froze that picture of her smiling, it just changed the whole perspective. So it's a really good exercise, Jenny.
Yeah. It's a wonderful exercise. And did you keep it color or black and white?
I
Or
moved it
was
to
it in
black.
color or black?
I moved it to black and white because I feel like black and white photos always have a more emotional kind of mystique to it. I don't know what it is, but it just I chose black and white. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. And where did you store it? Did you
Oh
store it
my
on the shelves
gosh.
or behind you? It
It was on the shelf. I pictured
was on the shelf.
my mom's fireplace mantle with the pictures of all the kids and the grandkids, and it was like in that sort of set.
Yeah. And sometimes you'll put it somewhere else. So you can put it in your heart. You can put it on the mantle. You can put it where it needs to go. But a lot of times you're doing
Hmm.
this with a very negative emotion. I I lost my horse right about 2019 also. And that was always a very painful memory for me. I had a lot of guilt around the whole situation that happened. And I used that technique so that that way when I see a picture of him, I can still remember all of the love and the happiness, and I don't have to carry the guilt and the weight. It didn't
Hmm.
remove it. I can still pull it back if I want the guilt. I don't know why I would, but I can. Um, and then if I do feel it, I can always push it all the way back out there. And so it can be a handy tool to deal with something in the moment.
Yeah. Speaking of that, handy tools for people listening who are thinking about, man, I have some execution blocks that I need to navigate through. What would be some things you would leave them with in passing to start using to help identifying and breaking down any execution blocks they may have?
So first of all, the hardest thing is to identify it and really realize that there could be something about me that I need to address. We want to believe that it's always external, and it's not. And so we look at the external. Do I know what I need to do? Do I have strategies that maybe I don't enjoy, but they could get me through it, and can I do it? And if I can't do it, then that's when I need to start talking to somebody who knows what's going on and get evaluated, really. Because it is an evaluation process. I I don't believe I'm actually third generation in people who've been fired for not selling you things you don't need. So my dad refused to sell TVs from Sears to people that didn't want them or didn't need them. My sister was that with makeup, and with me, it was a medical plan. It was like, you don't need this. I'm not selling it to you. Um, I want to make sure that the technique is going to work on you before you invest, because sometimes it is just changing that strategy. Sometimes it is just putting down the TV remote and walking in there and doing it. Usually you're going to be able to do those on your own.
Hmm.
Um, Strategies that you can use, really sit with yourself and look at, is this the same spot that I keep getting stuck at? Um, Feel in your body. Is this something that doesn't feel good when I think about doing it? And is it just because I don't like it, which is a different, in my body, and I realize everybody's body is different. If I don't like doing something, it's usually here. It's usually kind of that, eh, I don't want to do it. But when it's something that it's just visceral, I'm not going to be able to get rid of it on my own.
Hmm.
So you can try the different techniques that we've talked about today, because we've actually touched on quite a few. If you're finding it in your field of vision, it could very well be a block.
Cool. Is there anything in our conversation today that we didn't touch on that you wanted to talk about?
I think so. We've had a pretty good conversation.
Yeah.
We've touched on a lot of different things, and um, About the other thing is I talked about the landmines, but I didn't talk about how they get there.
Hmm.
And we've kind of talked around it. And so I think maybe we should break that down real quick.
Yeah.
Um, Basically, when we encounter something in life, from the time we're born, sometimes before we're born, all the way till today, it comes in through our body, it comes in through our vision, our hearing, our taste, our smell, and then it comes up into our brain. And our brain gets the opportunity at that point to look at it and determine, is this going to kill me or hurt me if I forget it? Or is this something that is way too much for me to process at this moment? If the answer is no, then that marble gets thrown into that long term storage. If the answer is yes, that's when we create those landmines. It doesn't have to be the end of the world. Like we talked about, it could be someone saying something, someone responding in a way that you didn't expect, but it creates that little landmine. Mindset and a lot of the other tricks that we've been talking about teach us how to tiptoe around that landmine. You do it enough, you start to build a path, which is great. We're building new neural pathways. Gotta love it. It takes a long time. And when you quit doing the work, you start to trip right back over that landmine again. The thing I love about brain spotting and reset sessions is we go in and remove the landmine. And then your brain can just take the path of least resistance every time.
Hmm. That's good. That's really good. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for outlining the importance of really identifying execution blocks. And I think the ways you've described recognizing them, I think are very easy, in simplistic ways for people to really understand. It may not be as simple to execute because it does take effort and it takes, wading through some feelings that you may not have felt in a long time because your brain has been trying to keep you safe. But that's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's just the reality. And, you are the person who gets to make the determining decision on what that definition of that reality is.
Right. Yeah. You get to decide what your life is going to be and what's going to change, or whether you're going to sit in the same life that you've had this whole time.
Hmm.
And if you want to run a business, especially a successful one, there have to be changes. And in order for changes, sometimes we need a little help and sometimes we need the reset session.
Hmm. And this is a perfect segue then into Jenny's letter to her former self. So you get a chance to recite what you would say to a younger version of yourself, knowing what you know today.
Dear former me, don't marry Daniel. Honestly, that is still the most immediately useful advice I can give you. But the three words would change everything is you are not broken. You're going to spend years thinking something is wrong with you because you know what to do, but you still can't make yourself do it. You're going to try harder, learn more, and blame yourself for not being able to force your way through. But you were never lazy or incapable. You were just blocked. And here's the part I wish you knew. Once you find the actual block, change doesn't have to take years. Sometimes it can happen in a moment. You can walk into a session unable to move forward and walking out knowing something has shifted because you never were broken. You really were just blocked.
Thanks for sharing that, Jenny. And I especially like that part that you stated that you were never broken, it was just a block. And I think a lot of people can learn just from that simple difference right there that what you're going through right now may not necessarily mean that you're broken. It could just be a block. And I
Yeah.
think that's a lot easier for people to work with than that perception that they're broken. So thanks for sharing that. That was fantastic.
Thank you. My favorite line is the first one, don't marry Daniel. And then, of course, my tagline, you're not broken, you're blocked. But,
Uh,
I'm going to be honest.
oh my goodness. Oh wow. If there's so many things people could say to their former self before they got into relationships, that would definitely probably be number one on most people's list. So thank
Yes.
you for sharing that. for your honesty, vulnerability, and your lessons, Jennie. This was fantastic.
Thank you, Dwayne. I appreciate the ability to come and talk with you. You've been an absolute delight. I hope that we continue to stay in touch because you're smart. I enjoy you. I enjoy talking to you. And I hope that people will listen not to just this episode, but all of them because, yeah, you've got a lot to share.
Thank you.